Hi, everyone. Welcome to Art and Talk. Thank you so much for being with us today. I'm Leslie Sue, the host for Art and Talk. On Art and Talk, we're all about meeting artists and being inspired. We bring on the traditional artists and we bring on spiritual artists as well. Today, we're bringing you a new art genre, the art of knitting. And our guest is a knitwear designer, and we'll be finding out all about her knitting and her journey. We have some photos we'll be taking a look at so we can see some of her beautiful knitwear creations. And she's also going to be giving us a demo as well. So thank you again for being with us. And let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome Anna. Hi, Anna. Welcome.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for having me.
Oh, gosh. Well, we're so excited to have you here. And I see you're already like in process and you have some of your beautiful knitwear behind you. Yes. Wow. So awesome. All right. So where should we begin, Anna? You're self-taught, which is pretty amazing in and of itself. Um, let's kind of maybe start with, how did this whole knitting begin? How did you find out about it when you started? What was this all like for you?
Okay, great question. It's always great to start there. So it was 2013 and I I was very much always involved in the arts. The Artist's Way, the book by Julia Cameron, has always been an inspiration for me. I dabbled in that for some time. I dabbled in all kinds of different artistic expression, whether it was painting, drawing, uh, poetic expression. I always dabbled. But one day, it turned out I ended up in a knitting store, not knowing I was in a knitting store. And the reason why I entered the knitting store is because there was this gorgeous cowl in the front window of this store shop. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's gorgeous. Had that Masoni pattern on. I just wanted to know how much it was. So a cowl, for people that don't know, this is what a cowl looks like. It's like this, kind of like a tube of sorts. And you can just put it around your neck and you're good to go, right? Now, the cowl that I saw had multi-layered colors. It had like various colors, like the Masoni pattern. And I really desired it. So I went inside the shop and I asked one of the ladies, how much is that cowl in the front window? Again, totally oblivious, did not even know that I was inside a knitting store. And I mean, yarn was everywhere, but I just wasn't seeing it, obviously. And she's like, oh, come with me to the back. So she took me to the back and she showed me an entire wall of yarn, like skeins of yarn, right? Like this kind of stuff, just hanging on the walls, different colors, different variations. And they were talking about the yarn. They were talking, this is hand-dyed yarn. It's all natural fiber with 100% merino. It has this variegation to it. I'm like, okay. I'm like, why are they telling me all this again? And she goes, you get to pick 6 of these skeins and then you get to knit the cowl. And I'm like, knit the cowl? I go, I don't know how to knit. Well, don't worry, we'll get you started. It's very easy. Very easy. I was like, okay, sure. So I really desired it. And I guess I said, okay, I'll try. I sat down and the lady, I had to buy needles because you need tools, right, to do these kinds of things. So these are the needles, right? These gorgeous, these are actually my favorite. These are a natural birch stain. They're my favorite. I love using natural fibers when I'm knitting, and also my tools, I prefer natural. So she gave me needles. I picked my 6 color skeins of yarn, and she just gave me the pattern. So the pattern is like something that you have to read. So this is what a pattern would kind of look like. This is a very intricate pattern. It's a graph. So this is one way to read a pattern. Another way to read a pattern is you would have like abbreviations. It would be written. It tells you exactly what to do. Kind of like when you do an experiment of sorts. So I'm like, I had it in my mind. I'm like, I can do this. I can totally do this, even though I've never tried this before. And I sat down and she just showed me the knit stitch and then these other stitches. By the way, this is not a beginner pattern, just saying, but for whatever reason, this is where I started. And I took the pattern, I wrote down what everything meant I was trying to remember everything so that when I would go home, I wouldn't forget what to do with each stitch pattern, because there was 6 different stitches, like I'm going from no stitch to 6 stitches. I'm like, oh, but I'm like, no, I can totally do this. And I was excited, and I was changing yarns like every 3 rows, like every 3rd row, because I had 6 different colors that you had to mix and match with. So again, not a beginner pattern, but of course I was determined. So I purchased everything. I went home and I was so addicted. I could not stop. In 10 days, I had this cowl complete. I went back to the shop because it's a cowl, right? And you have to put it together now because it was like a tube. So you have to put it together. And I was like, I don't know how to do this. I don't even know where to start with this. So when I showed it to them, they're like, this is the first thing they said, you knit this? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, wow, your stitches are like perfect. I go, yeah. And then they're like, in 10 days, like you're like a legend. So that's what they called me. They called me the legend because I didn't have any experience, but I was so determined. And that was it. And so from there, I just wanted to buy more yarn and knit more. And it just began. And it's been a very healing process for me too, because when you're knitting, you're very present. You're very much in the moment of the now. And, there's so many distractions happening in our current reality, right? But when you're knitting, you actually have to follow some sort of like, I want to say script or pattern, or there's a method to it, unless it's just the basic knit stitch. So it keeps you really focused. And if you're processing something like, for instance, if you're processing some emotional trauma or some mental, the neurology is like not hitting you quite right. So you're stuck on something. For me, I found that it was very healing and therapeutic, and hence why I desired more, because it was giving me that sense of peace that I've been searching for most of my life, right? With whatever I was processing through my entire like now moment, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, and then I wanted to try different things. I wanted to start getting very complicated, like doing patterns like this. I'm going to show you. That's a very detailed, cable and lace pattern. Were you able to see that? Yeah. So there's a lot going on there. Mm-hmm. And that's the back of this cardigan. Again, I knit this cardigan, but I didn't put the buttons on, but I'll show you. And even the colors, these are all hand dyed yarns. I only really want to support local hand dyers. I don't want to support the big, pumping out like synthetic materials. I'm not interested in any of that. Actually, I don't even want to touch it. And so this is 100% merino with, this is 100% merino. And this, to even get this color, this dye, you can just imagine what they needed to do, right? It's probably a ton of beets, maybe some pomegranate. I don't know what else they're using, other flowers and stuff. And yeah, so ever since I started, I got very curious, and I just would not stop knitting. And every time I would knit my next project, they were like, this chick's on fire. I knit socks. My 3rd project was socks. And they're like, that's really advanced. It's nowhere close to beginner and nowhere close to a 3rd project. And I was like, no, I'm gonna knit these socks. So I bought the yarn, and the yarn for socks, for the most part, is the gauge of the yarn is very fine. It's very skinny, right? So a lot of people don't like to knit with that kind of yarn because it takes a little bit longer to complete, as opposed to knitting with like a thicker yarn, like something more chunkier. But I was like, no, I can do this. And I knit the socks. I didn't have a pattern, but the lady at the yarn store gave me a free pattern. And there were a lot of things I didn't understand, but guess what? I just Googled it. And then I just kept trying. And then I figured it out. And it was exciting. Like that curiosity, that throwing myself in the unknown actually just allowed me to just get even more excited. So yeah, it's so much fun. Mm-hmm. So I'm here.
Yeah. Wow, what an amazing journey that you shared with us. I'd just like to go back, Anna, to a few things that you mentioned. So in addition to having this innate ability, tell us in your words, because you mentioned a couple things that, first of all, when you first went into the store, like from the very first get-go, you were approached by her, and she was showing you the some of the stitches and whatnot, and you were, as you said, you were determined, like, so you kind of had this mindset of, yes, I can do it. So that kind of mindset combined with, this, kind of dormant talent, but then of course it's been brought out. And the kind of fire that you have to kind of want to figure things out and kind of like, yeah, I'm going to master this. How much of that do you feel, Anna, played out?
Oh, that was the key ingredient to this, 100%. So the way I look at it, if someone says, like, if they see me knitting, like I'll knit in public and they'll say to me, oh my gosh, that's so difficult. It's only as difficult as you decide, right? Because it's all a mindset, right? So if you decide that you can achieve that, then it's done. It's already done in the mind. You're just now going to take action towards creating that, right? So that's the key thing. And so once you decide, you literally can do anything you put your mind to, right? And so I feel like the excitement of that starts when you decide, right? And then that just grows from there. So I just knew I was going to have that Missoni cowl. It was going to happen. I decided. I knew nothing of this knitting thing, but I committed myself to it and I got very curious. I have that very tenacious personality and I made it happen. And it's also nice when other people will see you wearing your knits and, maybe I'm wearing my sweater and they're like, oh my God, like that's so gorgeous. Like I'm going to show you something that's really beautiful. I'll just give you an example. This is a really beautiful, simple knit, but it's not simple. Just the look of it has this natural classic elegance to it. It's very simple. It's a bunch of like cables kind of running up and down with a gorgeous turtleneck because I love turtleneck. But when you see something like this on someone, let's just say it's an example. I'm not going to put on right now because it's so hot here. It's like 30 degrees. I'm melting. As much as I want to put it on, I just feel I'm going to just melt in it. But there's this piece here as an example. So it's just pure classic elegance. This is almost 100% cashmere. It has a bit of silk and a bit of merino. It's a natural hand-dyed yarn fiber that I chose for this. When I wear something like this, and like if I'm wearing like a pair of like a jean with a heel, or like if I want to wear a dress underneath it, or whatever I do with it, people will come up to me when I'm wearing my knits. They're like, where'd you get that? That's gorgeous. Like, I want that. And I'm like, you can totally have that. You're going to have to knit it yourself and I can guide you through the process. And they're like, wow, And so if you were to buy something like this, like let's say it's a designer piece at a store, it's not going to be something that I think you'll appreciate as much as when you actually put your heart into something. It's just different, and then you get to choose the fibers you want to touch your body, right? So that your body's breathing and you're not suffocating it with like a acrylic polyester blend that is out there, right? So yeah, so that happens a lot for me when I'm out and about. The construction of things is like incredible too. My background is low and high-rise residential construction on the design side. And so, you think about designing, and then here I am designing knitwear. It's like, wow, how amazing how this is all turning out for me, right? How it's just unfolded. But if I want to show you this, for instance, these are like bat sleeves, if you can see it. So I hope you guys can see this. Are you able to perceive the bat sleeves?
Yes.
Yeah. So these are like the sleeves, right? So the way it kind of comes out on the sides. And when you're wearing it, it almost feels very boxy like, but it's not. And so I had so much fun when I knit this. There's a lot of different textures I use, basic knitting, nothing complicated. This is really just one basic stitch, but I played with the stitch. No, sorry, actually three. Sorry, there's three. I just had to peek because there's a tubular cast on here, but I'll show you what I did here. So I had yarn and I have a stash of like yarn that I haven't fully knit. So sometimes when I knit like a sweater or a sock or a shawl, there's leftover pieces. I don't like to throw it away because these are beautiful yarns that I'm purchasing. So I know I'll make use of them, and the right time for them will come when they're ready to be knit. I like to also talk to my yarn, but that's a story for another time. So this piece here, if you see, there's like this kind of like texture at the top here. And this is really just knitting in the front and knitting in the back. That's how you create that kind of like texture. And then at the bottom here, this is just straight the knit stitch back and forth all the way around and around. And then I did like a ribbing at the bottom here to just finish it off. Yeah. And if you look at this, the way the side seam is, look how gorgeous the seam is. It's just so beautiful, right? And this is where I did the decreases to take it in so it goes in like this. And then because I ran out of this yarn, the main color that you're seeing here, I ran out. It's all good. You would never know. So what did I do? I'm an artist. I got blue. So I took some blue and I did I finished the sleeves in blue. By the way, those are my ends. That's one thing I don't like about knitting is when I'm finished is to weave in these ends. I just hide them. I have no patience for that. That's one thing. Everyone has their thing. That's mine. And then I wanted to finish the neck with a bit of the blue just to balance the whole entire piece out. And that's it. It's a really gorgeous classic piece. So I can wear this going out, you know, like even if I'm going out on a date with friends or whomever, and I'm having dinner or whatever I'm doing, people are like, it's just beautiful. And there's a bit of mohair on here. I don't know if you can see the fluffiness of it. So it's kind of like fluffy. It might be a little bit hard to see or perceive that. And they're lightweight, you know, so and they're so cozy.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are fingerless mittens that, you know, I have these are leather gloves, obviously purchased. And then these are fingerless mittens that I put on top. So just to add a bit more flavor to something, right? So if I'm out and about, those are leather gloves, but these are my fingerless mittens that I added. And I put a gorgeous detail pattern, if you could see. It's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
But it's just classic and elegant, right? So it's way more fun to knit your own pieces, like handmade with love. And that's why I feel when people see me wearing my knits, they can feel the love emanating from them. It's almost like, what is that? And it's not even about the knit. It's about the love, the passion that I weaved into creating the piece, you know? So yeah. So this I want to show you because this is one of my recent pieces. I've never steeked. So steeking means you have to cut. You have to use scissors and cut. And I'm like, I don't know if I can do this, but I'm going to do this. I still haven't done it yet. It's sitting there and I need to. So this is really a cardigan. I'm okay with it being like a pullover, but I need to cut it right along here. So there's just a lot of, just so you see the inside of this, there's a lot going on when you're using multiple colors to create a pattern as such. So I need to cut this. I'm a little nervous because I've never done this. So I'm looking at YouTube videos on how to do this because I don't know. And then I have to create like a button band and get my buttons. And then this is complete and it's ready to be worn. See here, the needle's still on here because I just need to cast off these stitches for the sleeve because the sleeve is complete. So yeah, these are just, I don't know, right? Like for instance, there's this piece that's so beautiful, color work as well, right? A sweater, so beautiful.
That is beautiful, yes.
And you know, you can just have so much fun when you wear these, when you create them. You get to pick your own colors. Like, have you ever had this thing where you go to a store and you're like, oh my God, like they have like 10 different color options for something. And you're like, but it's still quite not right. Well, you know what? How about you start knitting your own pieces, right? So, yeah.
Wow, I love everything that you're sharing. And your sense of touch, Anna, and your tactile sense is so beautiful. And I love that you use all natural materials and you know, all the different pieces that you've been holding up, even through the video, you can feel the softness and the luxury and the texture coming through, even though, you know, we're not actually experiencing it as, you know, seeing it per se. And I love how you were saying you were like set up because, you know, you had some designing background and then your whole creative thinking and, you know, coming out through the designs and being experimental is really evident in your work.
Thank you.
And I love that you're modeling all this for us.
Why not? I'm trying. Look how gorgeous this piece is.
Yes, yes.
And it's fun.
Yeah, and we can tell this is such a passion. I mean, you put your heart and soul, as you said, in each, you know, specific stitch, and it emanates out. Look at that, it's gorgeous. Tell us about that.
Shawl, right? It's a shawl.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So this piece here, just so you know, is a bunch of my scrap yarn. I don't like to call it scrap because guess what? You're not scrap. You're so gorgeous. See, I talked to my yarn, but look what happened. Look how gorgeous is this. These are leftover pieces and I'm just going to have fun. And so soon it's going to be fall here in Canada. Probably in another month, I'll be able to start maybe wearing my knits. This year we had a really hot summer, so I wasn't able to really wear a lot of my knits at nighttime. But look how gorgeous this is. And it's lightweight. Feels like nothing on. And I mean, right? Even if you're traveling, like on a plane with the AC, this is a nice piece to keep you warm. It doesn't take up too much space. And it's beautiful. It's colorful, right? So if you're traveling light, you have a piece like that. It just adds color, right, to whatever you're wearing, right?
Yes, yes. I'd like to touch, Anna, upon what you spoke about before in terms of your knitting being very healing for you, because it brings you, as you were saying, into the present. Yeah, that's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. Yeah, we're all salivating. We all want one of each of those. Those are amazing. So
I'll put this on for you guys.
Okay.
But keep talking.
And the colors are gorgeous, as we're, soon be into the fall season. It looks really warm and cozy, maybe with some pumpkin spicy, something warm to drink.
Yes. Again, the yarn is a hand-dyed yarn. So these are healing pieces. I have had people message me, just much like yourself, how you found me. People find me. I don't know how. They just do. It's just the way it is, resonance, right? And they've asked me to knit a piece for them. I always tune into that if I'm being commissioned to knit something for someone. If it is going to add, if I'm knitting for them for, a healing component to it, then I have no problem doing it. I'm really guided, because as an artist, it's almost hard to like let go of your pieces when get very intimate when you're knitting. You're with them for some time, right? And then it's like, oh my gosh, someone's paying me for this, but I can't let it go, right? So there's that thing too. So so I have knit some pieces for people, and what's happened is this. I'll tell you. So I'll give you one example. I had this lady in LA find me, synchronicity, right? And she asked me, Anna, do you ever knit for people? I'm like, generally, I said, no, I haven't, but I knew she wanted me to knit for her. So I said, tell me, what is it? You're desiring a piece? She's like, yeah, I would love for you to knit me something. I said, okay. And so I said to her, what is it that you would desire? She goes, well, I saw you post some socks. They look so cute. I would love a pair of those. I said, okay. I sat with it before I responded, and I just tuned in. Is this something that I'm to knit for her? Is this part of the service of humanity, right? Because it's always about this gift that I have of knitting is very sacred. And so what is this about that I need to, there's this current exchange that needs to happen, obviously. So is this part of the plan? And so I get a yes, and I messaged her. I told her the socks were $396 US. She said, no problem. I also told her that I'm to pick the yarn, the color, and the design. And are you okay with that? She's like, yeah, totally. So I actually designed these socks for her energetic frequency upgrade. And the cable pattern that came through for her, it's not really just a cable. I look at it as like an activation, like a DNA activation within, right? Like, because the strand itself looked like some sort of DNA strand that I was providing for her. Mm-hmm. And the color that came through for her was like a deep cobalt blue color. And so, yeah, turns out I want to tell you guys how incredible this is. I knew nothing of this lady. When I was knitting these socks, I had my right eye that was just tearing up, crying, and no control. I was like, what's going on here? This is like, what are you trying to tell me? And it wasn't about me. It was about her. But I didn't know. I still didn't know yet exactly what it was. So what it felt like is like I was healing, I was weaving the etheric body, right? And through this tangible piece that I was going to, that she purchased through me, right? The currency exchange. So I was bringing in the energy into these socks for her that are going to provide healing for her. And so I was just weaving them, and I was experiencing, I had this very visceral experience through my body, and came to realize that there's something more to this. And I needed to ask her, hey, and so I did. So I messaged her. Oh, wow, there's a cardinal right here. Yes, that means our frequency is really high up. So I messaged her and I said, I just want to ask you a question, a bit of a personal question, but I'm hoping that you'll understand my question. So I'm experiencing something with my right eye. I told her the sensations and stuff. We are mirrors, reflections. So when I am working on your socks, this is when it's happening. I feel like I'm working on your etheric body, but you don't need to understand that. But I just want to know, is there something going on there? And wow, she lost her left eye. So we're mirrors, right? My right eye, it's her left eye. You see? And I was like, oh, my heart like opened up even more, because then I knew, like, obviously the confirmation I received, yes, I'm to knit these for her because she's supposed to receive something through me, and she's supposed to wear these socks that are going to provide some healing for her. I was just like, wow, right? You can't make this stuff up. So my healing, like the artistry that I have, the knitting, the weaving is healing. It's not just, yay, let's knit. It's a little bit more sacred for me. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah. So it's nice when I get that kind of confirmation. So if I have knit pieces for people, usually I'll do like a couple a year, not too many, because there's other stuff that's going on and that I'm creating. So it's not my main priority because, again, it takes a lot of time. And so knitting is more like meditative for me than ever. So hence why, I'm happy to teach people how to knit, and also allow them to experience what I experience, because I know a lot of people want to be in this kind of vibrational frequency. I find that there's a lot of people now that are starting to question everything. And I get it, because that's been my reality, but I've kind of like moved from that. And now I'm kind of in this flow state of beingness, right? And so people desire that kind of contagious energy that maybe I have that I'm putting out there, right? So that's where I'm going with the knitting now more than ever, because this provides a sense of, I feel comfort. It's like a meditation for people, especially in these times where there's the unknown. There's just so much fear out there too, right? So yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That was such a beautiful story, and that was so heartwarming, and it's just really, really beautiful that not only are you creating these beautiful, knitwear creations, and it's been healing for you, as you were saying, being in the present moment and just really taking all that energy and your heart energy and putting it into the creation, being fully, fully, fully present, but also an extension to others. And I love your reverence and honor to this whole process, because when you were approached, as you were saying, Anna, by this person, who wanted the pair of socks, you were first like, okay, let me check inside myself. That was such a sacred move on your part. Let me see how this is feeling. That's a completely different, vast contrast from just, having a client and just saying yes, kind of wham, bam. You took it to another level of like, let me check in with this. And that's so beautiful, and really, really honor that sacred reverence. And then the whole story, that unfolded as well. So, wow. Yeah. So before we get to you kind of showing us, actually a little demo, we have a couple photos. I know you've shown us many of your creations, but let's look at a couple photos and have you elaborate on them if you would.
Sure. Yeah, I would love to. Let's do it.
Okay. So here we go. I'll just let you go ahead and share with us.
Okay. So that is the picture of my first pattern. Those are the 6 skeins that I selected for my Masoni cowl. I actually ended up giving away my cowl. It happens, you give away stuff. I gave it to people at the church and stuff, but those were the colors I selected. That was my first project. That's where it all started, 2013. I think it was end of August, September. What do you guys think? You like? Does anybody else want one of those?
And so this is a lot for your first project, this isn't just like one or two. This is like
No.
6. So this is quite a heavy first endeavor into your knitting journey.
100%. But I did it.
All right.
That's the cowl. There it is.
All right.
That's the finished piece. I'm wearing it there.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you. I love that piece. Wow. Oh, sweater. Okay, so this is a sweater. You can see the sleeves kind of formed in there. You can see the neck. You can also see that's the front of the sweater with the gorgeous diamond cabled patterns. So gorgeous. That yarn itself is really delicious. That is 100% merino hand-dyed yarn. So soft, pure luxury. Like, it's just divine. So that ended up being, it had long sleeves and it had a turtleneck. I actually love turtlenecks. I have this thing with turtlenecks. So if I have extra yarn, it's always going to be a turtleneck, the way I look at it. And I knit that all the way down to my waist with, rib finish at the bottom. Yeah, gorgeous piece.
Yeah, the pattern is beautiful, and we can really feel that the handmade dyes are just the colors. You can feel the richness, and then with the threads, just beautiful. I love that you don't use anything synthetic. Yeah, really beautiful.
No, yeah, no. Thank you.
All right, and there you are.
There I am. That's not even 1 year in, so that's 2014. And I knit that dress. So I have to tell you all, this is how it started. That was initially to be a pullover. So you start knitting the pullover from the top down, from the neck. You create some sleeves and stuff, and you keep knitting the body round and round and round and round. You go. There's a bit of a pattern at the top, little holes like eyelids. It's really gorgeous. And then when I got to the waist-ish, ready to cast it off, which means to complete the pullover, I was like, the yarn was talking to me. It was like, this is not a pullover. You're not finished, Anna. I was like, really? Okay, what are we doing here? You're gonna knit a dress. So I love dresses. I'm almost always in a dress, very feminine that way. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna knit a dress. It's like a hot pink. It's one of my favorite colors too. Like, I'm doing it. And so I went back to the yarn store. I got 2 more skeins of yarn, which is 2 more balls of yarn. And I just continued knitting. I had to do a couple increases just for my waist, my hip a little bit. And then I continued. And then I added a cute little ruffle at the bottom because it's so girly. And then I had it finished. That took me 3 weeks because, of course, I just wanted to wear it. It was, summer around this time. So it was, I think, July when I knit this. So almost a year later. And that's a belt that I had, and I just put on. And when I went to the knit store, this picture was taken in the back of the knit store in the back in the garage area, because they were just like, oh my God, this is gorgeous. So that would have been my first design. I was already designing, not even knowing that I had the capacity to design and create. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah. All right.
And it feels so good on. And when you go out, people are like, oh my God, I love your dress. I go, thanks. Where'd you get it? I knit it. They're like, what?
Yeah. And it looks super comfortable. It just looks, so cozy, comfy, well made. The color is, is gorgeous. Yeah, that hot pink is beautiful. And the little ruffle at the end.
Yes.
Nice.
It's so cute. Thank you.
Okay, look at this with the hat. Very nice.
Yes. See, you can knit hats. You can knit all kinds of different accessories. So this yarn is a little bit thicker yarn. So, if anyone wants to knit a hat, you literally can knit a hat in 3 days at any level. It's very not complicated. Though this one has a pattern, there's a bit of a cable to it. So maybe wouldn't suggest this as the first pattern. But yeah, and of course, I like colors. So this color is like a very deep kind of purple splash, like fuchsia. It's fun. Yeah, I have fun in my knits. That's all I have to say.
I have a question for you, Anna.
Yes.
If somebody wants to learn to knit, but let's say that they don't feel that they maybe have that technical hand dexterity. Maybe they have the same determination that you do. Maybe they've approached other projects, activities, and they've met that challenge. And maybe they want to do it, but maybe they don't have that. Like you have a very strong tactile sense that's pretty evident, and like the way you see and feel and kind of like merge with all that is super beautiful. But if somebody feels like, well, they're not quite sure if they have that hand dexterity, but they want to learn, what would you recommend to them?
Okay, so I would recommend thicker needles to start. So, if someone were to take a beginner knitting course with me online, I wouldn't start you on these very thin needles that are the gauge itself is like, it's not probably a first project for someone who has that, situation. So the needles would have to be thicker. I didn't bring my needles out with me, my tools, but a thicker gauge of needle would be perfect, because then you can have a nice grip on the needles, and then you can just start practicing the knitting, right? The stitch itself, the basic knit stitch, right? So yeah, and at your own pace. And when you get addicted, then you can go down a needle size, and then maybe you can add a couple more stitches to create more of a textured pattern to whatever you're knitting, right? So I would totally suggest just thicker needles, like a larger size, like the gauge itself,
Yeah, that sounds like a good way to start, and then kind of get a good feel for it, kind of like work your way in.
Yeah, and like thicker yarn. So the gauge itself is like, yeah. And the reason why is because then you can have more of a handle of the yarn itself. Like this yarn here is lace. It's so thin, you can hardly see this. And a lot of people are like, oh my God, Anna, you and your lace. And I'm like, I love it. Like, I'm like crazy about my lace, of course. This is a baby alpaca silk, this itself. And it's obviously very thin. There's a lot of yarn in this. This you can create like a big shawl, right? And people always say to me, like, I have no patience for that. I go, that's okay. I go, when I started, of course, everyone saw my first project. That was fingering weight. So it's a little bit larger than this. And, maybe I was just a little bit more ambitious because I kind of like desired the piece so much. And I wanted to just to have it, not knowing what I was getting myself involved in. But you know what? It just turned out perfectly. So yeah, so just I believe anyone can knit. It's actually really good for the mind too. There is some neurology like around that, and science that backs it up. So anybody can start 100%. I can make it so much fun for you.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure. Absolutely. And there's also a visual, obviously, component as well. It's the hands, the mind, the creativity, the visual aspect, all kind of weaving together, so to speak.
Yeah, and you get to pick your colors, like the yarn colors. Also with the needles, going back to the suggestion regarding the size of the needles, so you have a nice grip. I also suggest like a natural wood. I find that it's warming. There's more comfort. I find that the ones that are like metal needles, especially the first time, or if you're having a bit of resistance and stuff, or story around whatever, I find that the wood needles, natural, you'll feel more at home with them, I feel.
Yeah, those are good beginner tips. Can you go through, Anna, a little slower, what you're doing, and kind of like talk to us about, the whole process that's going on?
Yeah, with this knitting right now?
Uh-huh.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. So we'll do like a little demo now.
Okay, you're gonna get it. Okay, so this is a geometric lace pattern shawl. I'm gonna show it to you. This is what it's gonna look like. How is that? Can you see that? Can you see that?
Yes, there we go.
Okay, that is what I'm knitting with this very fine yarn. And just so you all know, this is how I like to follow a chart. This is how I like to do it. I generally like to follow a chart. I use sticky notes. Okay, for the people that don't know, I go to Staples and buy sticky notes, and usually I buy them like, you know, I'm a hot pink kind of girl. And so this is the chart. So yeah, I know it kind of looks like it's a different language. I don't know. I have a lot of fear. I don't think I can do this. This is what happens with a lot of people. But hold on a second. It's really not that difficult, because when I read this pattern, I can assure you there's only really 4 stitches that you have to, you don't even have to master them. You just have to know how to knit them. That's all. And the beauty of this shawl, it doesn't have to have perfect gauge. So what I mean by that is, you know, when you're knitting it, it's more loose. So it's okay. Like, you don't have to, you know, pull the yarn at a certain, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. No fuss. So, so you just literally follow the pattern from right to left, right to left. And it's a pattern repeat. So for instance, in this case, there's 22 rows to create the diamond pattern, right? That I'd shown you guys. So you just have to continuously repeat the 22 rows until you get, guess what? Your desired length, however long you want it. So again, that's the shawl, right? You can see the diamond pattern. And, you know, going back to this, because I think this would be a good, where did it go? Where did it go? So for instance, see this here? This is I call this the waffle shawl. So this piece here, you start from the bottom and you move your way up. When you get your desired length, you're good to go. You just cast off and that's it. So the same thing with this. So here is my beautiful lace yarn with my beautiful naturally hand-dyed birch needles. Yes, because birch trees, right? And this row is just the basic knit stitch. So I'm just knitting it, basic knit stitch. I don't even have to look at the pattern and to do all the other 3 different stitches. This is I get like a break. This is my break. So I just do the same stitch all the way across. I don't need to worry about what the first stitch is, what the second stitch is. No, I don't need to worry about it. Just do this. It's kind of relaxing right now, right? Kind of have a bit of a break as I'm showing you this demo. And then once I'm done, this front side, this side here that I'm knitting on, I turn it over and I go back. Then I turn it over and I go back and forth. And that's how I create this long rectangular, gorgeous piece. Now, I will show you a bit of the diamond pattern that is starting to take shape and form over here for you all. So I'm assuming you can see that. So there it is. So there's a lot of holes, right? You know, those holes are called a yarn over. I wouldn't have known what that was. And a yarn over, when you look at the chart, is like a circle. So whenever I see a circle, I know that's a yarn over. It's like, okay, that's a yarn over, right? And there's other patterns. There's other like knit stitches. There's like a that go in different directions and they represent something else. So it's kind of like a code. There's knitting codes, nothing to fear. It's so much fun to dabble with like the different textures and patterns that you can actually create and feel. Like for instance, this is a sweater that is almost complete. So just to give you an idea, so I just have to knit the sleeves and I'm probably gonna have leftover yarn. So we know what Anna's gonna knit. It's gonna be a turtleneck for sure. So this is the sweater itself. And on the side here, this is the side of, you know, the body is this gorgeous, like I am telling you, gorgeous. Look at this cable pattern that I weaved in here on the side. And this is on both. Yeah. And it's so simple, right? But yeah, it's so gorgeous. And it's on both sides of the body. And then I'm going to have these beautiful sleeves, and the sleeves, I'm going to continue the pattern that you just saw underneath. So it's going to go underneath. So from the bottom up, and it's going to go like that. It's not going to be on top of the pattern when I'm knitting it. And I want you to take a look at how special this yarn is. Hand-dyed yarn, it's not solid. So you're going to get some variation to it. And that's what I love about hand-dyed. There's just, you know, when I'm buying hand-dyed, it's never going to be solid. Like, take a look at that, right? You see different hues of brown in there. So I'm going to show it to you this way. You see the different hues?
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's the fun of it, right? Because you can add these different details, these different patterns to create texture wherever you want, however you want when you're designing, right?
Mhm.
So that excites me. But I have to be honest with you. I have like this love affair with just the knit stitch on a sweater. It also has gorgeous, like, it's just gorgeous still on its own, just the basic knit stitch on its own.
Mhm. So once you get kind of the feel for knitting, I'm just looking at someone maybe, kind of like just starting, then it's really the sky's the limit because there's just so many, like any creative field, it's just like there's just so many variations of the patterns and color combinations and style. And I love when you put the pattern down the side, it's like subtle, but yet what an interesting, way of, sort of honoring that space of the garment.
Yes. Like, look at this piece. I just put like a braid in the middle.
Mhm.
See that?
Mhm.
And so this is just a top, sleeveless, cool little top. I had some leftover brown, so I just finished the bottom with that and the sleeve edges and the neck edge. So yeah, exactly what you said. You can have so much fun.
Mhm.
You can design, you can just, just go with the flow. It's so much fun.
Mhm.
And it's exciting, right? Because
Yeah.
you're creating it. And then once you get into this flow of, really appreciating this as an artistic expression, you're going to want to get more curious naturally,
Mhm.
guaranteed.
Yeah. And before we close the show out, we do have a few more minutes. You have a online course called Knitting Made Simple, and you've been kind enough to offer a special to the Art and Talk audience. So can you share with us what's within the course and what people are going to get, what they can expect, and what that's all about?
Yes. Okay. So for $67 US, what you're going to receive is 5 instructional lessons, techniques, inspiration, me, but not live. You do it at your own pace, but
Right.
it's a Kickstarter course. It gets you started. It gets you curious. And then from there, once you've completed that, once you start, dabbling with playing with the stitch here and there, we get you get the opportunity to continue with me. Maybe you're going to want to knit something specific, and I will design a program for you for that to get you into, really learning how to read a pattern, right? And the pattern that you desire, right? Selecting your yarn, your needles, all that fun stuff, right? So this course, Knitting Made Simple, is really just getting you started, getting you playing the knit stitch, and getting you excited. Obviously, it'll be very inspirational. And I know you'll come out of it after the 5 videos with, just getting you kick-started into being inspired to try more of it. So yeah, and if you're going through something in life, whatever it is, maybe there's just too much noise out there, maybe it's time to just try something different, you know? Why not, right?
Mhm. Yeah, sounds like a fabulous course. And I love the heart and soul that you put into your knitwear creations, and your passion just runs so high. It's just been just wonderful, just listening to you and having you share all about your journey and your beautiful creations, and of course the process that you elaborated on. And I also really love that you purchase locally, so that really helps the local artists, and that what a great thing to do there. As we do need to close the show out, Anna, we like to leave our guests with the closing comments. So however you would like to close out the show, and if you could let us know how we can find out and sign up for the online course and how people can get connected with you.
Okay, so what you can do for the online course is that you guys can email me you have my email address. Do you want to put that up on the screen? They can email me, and we do the payment processing through PayPal. I just took down my old web page because I'm recreating everything now. But you'll still be able to receive it. It'll be done through email right now. And then eventually I'm going to be putting everyone into a platform and creating, the different levels and layers of the community that people can sign up for and with as I start creating this for everyone, right? To start the knitting process up to knitwear designer, if that's where they want to go with this. So for now, it would be just emailing me, and then we go from there. I send you the PayPal link, or I can send it to you now, and you can provide it to your audiences, and we go from there. In terms of like what I want to leave you with inspiration, there's a lot of people out there right now that are feeling a lot of different emotions, and also maybe going through some other mental blocks, which I want to just let you know it's normal. And knitting has provided me so much peace and aliveness, and this sense of purpose, right? And so if you're feeling called to try something new, you don't have to become a knitwear designer, but it doesn't hurt to try something new and just get curious, because at the end of the day, you can create something for yourself. You can create yourself like a long rectangular scarf or a hat, but something you can call your own, and it'll give you a sense of accomplishment too. Especially maybe if you have a very busy life, this can be your little meditation on the side. So some people can't meditate; they can't just sit down and turn themselves off. This can help start the process of quieting the mind and all the other stuff going on. So if you want to take the journey, reach out. I'm ready. I'm excited. Just to guide you, to empower you, so that you can like reweave your reality, right? And transform whatever it is that you're going simply by knitting. It's, allowing the artistic expression to come through you. It is life-changing. And it can also allow you to quiet your thoughts, to rethink, like, why am I here? What is my true life purpose? And these are questions that I had. And, through knitting, I've been able to answer a lot of those questions. You don't need to become a knitwear designer, but maybe you'll start to, recognize that there's a lot more that you came here to do in service to humanity. And it's, maybe moving away from that 9-to-5 job and starting to like move back into the remembrance of maybe what it was that you did as a child that really ignited you. So knitting made simple will take you there, guaranteed. And I will be your guide.
Anna, thank you so much for your beautiful voice and your beautiful message, and sharing your passion of knitting and the spiritual connection to it. You're really taken us on a deep dive, even deeper than the actual knitting itself. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. It's been a real joy and honor to connect with you. Thank you so much, Anna.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching Art and Talk. We appreciate the time you take to watch our videos. Please stay connected with us on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. We appreciate your support, and we'll talk soon on the next Art and Talk. Until then, be well and be blessed.